I was 17 years old when I found out that breakfast was a meal that people ate every day. I had just bought a bagel from the school cafeteria and apologized to my friends for needing it. They brushed it off, told me that they had already eaten at home. You mean to tell me that you eat breakfast each day? Of course, that's what they meant. I wasn't angry when I learned this. I was relieved. See, I was a senior in high school and up to this point had spent most of the classes I had before lunch less concerned about learning new content and more concerned about trying to get my stomach not to growl. I would have bruises on my abdomen because I would take my fingers and dig them deeply into my stomach. It was loud and embarrassing, and I was relieved because I finally understood why I seemed to be the only one who was hungry all the time. My childhood home was not a place of safety or love. I grew up in poverty. I didn't have enough clothes that I could wear a different shirt each day of the week. All my new shoes came with holes. The wall next to the mattress where I slept on the floor was so rotted through that cold air and bugs would come in. I didn't have a winter coat. When my teachers asked my parents to send me in something that would keep me dry in the Seattle rain, they cut holes in a garbage bag. I had one thin, dark brown scratchy blanket. Cut wires protruded from it where it once held warmth for whoever owned it before me. I took it off my mattress each morning to hang onto my otherwise barren doorframe. It offered the same weak protection to the volatile anger outside of my room during the day as it offered protection from the cold during the night. My siblings and I used to hide behind that blanket and play a game, perhaps to lighten the fear that I know we all felt where we guessed what my dad was breaking that day. I still remember the sound as a large light blue clamshell lamp shattered against the basement wall where my dad had thrown it. I don't remember who won that day, who had guessed correctly what had broken. I do remember that large pieces of glass littered the floor for weeks. Maybe if we never acknowledged that the lamp had broken, we could pretend that we weren't being broken either. Suffice it to say, I was not ripe with potential walking into my 9th grade English class, although at least by 14 I knew not to wear garbage bags to school. I was in the exact same classroom with the exact same teacher that my brother had sat in just the year before, a class that he had failed. My oldest brother had already dropped out of high school after not earning any credits at the alternative school where he had been sent. Education couldn't be important to my family because day-to-day survival was, and classwork doesn't pay for food or electricity. By the time I was in middle school, my mom was working at Burger King, and despite living less than a mile away, I hadn't seen my dad in years. I had a paper out. Every day as I got older, I traded that paper out for a job at the grocery store, where I often worked right after school until 11 o'clock at night. I remember the stress each morning of pumping gas as it approached $1 because that's all we had to last throughout the day, and all the extra change had already been claimed. Throughout this time, I put very little effort into everything that I did because if I didn't try and failed, it had no bearing on my actual ability, and that was safe. And more important to me than success, learning, or growth was safety. The first assignment in that class was a paper on a book of our choosing. There weren't any parameters to this book report, or more likely, I didn't care or know enough about rubrics to follow one. I never would have chosen Anna Karenina or A Tale of Two Cities on my own. A book of over 100 pages would never do. I did, after all, have a job to get to. I don't recall the name of the book, the author, but I do remember that it was 87 pages long. One morning right before class, I sat down to research this book. And by research, I definitely mean that I was looking up a summary of it online. But in my search, I stumbled across a commentary by the author about why he wrote this book. And perhaps it's because I entered an unjust world too early, but I've always been intrigued by the question why. And there was nothing noble or groundbreaking in his answer. The author was just trying to pay his bills. In fact, he had set aside a larger, more important project, a project much more meaningful for him, just for a paycheck so that he could survive another month. And while I didn't understand working towards long-term goals, I certainly understood doing what was necessary to pay bills and what it took to survive. I could empathize with this author, and for the first time, I poured my heart into my work. Not that I had high expectations for what I did. I learned at a very young age that expectations just ended up hurting me. Sometime later, I got the paper back, and I casually flipped to the back to check my grade. It is, after all, what everyone else was doing, caring about their grades, and I was trying to play the part. To the murmur of others expressing dismay, or eagerly showing off their work to others. I set my jaw to lock in any emotion that I might feel. And this moment made such an impression on me that over 20 years later, I can recall it with perfect clarity. Where I was sitting in the room, the lighting, the movement of people around me, the curve of his letters, and the exact shade of red that he used to write. Your writing is mature, graceful, and unique. You need to go to college. And time stood still for me in that moment. I'd never considered the possibility of college before. I didn't even know that it was an option for someone like me until Mr. Barrett told me that it was. Not only does this moment stand out to me as a door opening into this whole other world where none had existed before, but perhaps more importantly, at 14, this was the first time in my life that someone had shown me my potential, what I was capable of. It was the first time in my life that somebody believed in me. And how is any child supposed to believe in herself when no one else believes in her first? Over the years, I've asked why a lot. I've wondered why the author wrote that book. I still wonder why I've never earned the approval of my parents. In the last couple of years, I've wondered why I'm teaching when it seems is so overwhelming and seemingly fruitless. And on my hardest days, I think of Mr. Barrett, who passed away years before I thought to reach out to him to tell him what his one scribbled comment did to the trajectory of my life. How I did go to college, that I graduated summa cum laude with a master's degree, that I've gone on to pursue a doctorate, that I broke the cycle for my own kids, that I became a 4th grade teacher because that's the age I realized that the things happening to me weren't happening to other kids. And more than anything, I needed my teachers to love and pour into me. Teachers plant seeds, and we often don't get to see the fruit of them. And those are seeds of greatness, because there is greatness in each child, not just the ones who are bright, who have the parental support at home to understand the importance of an education, but it's in the ones who are late or don't come at all. It's in the ones who struggle academically and emotionally and behaviorally, the ones who are so angry for reasons you should be so grateful you don't understand. It's in the ones who are unmotivated, who don't like you. It's in the ones who are dirty and hungry, who wear garbage bags to school. There's greatness in each child, and our job as educators, it is to help them find it. It is to help them see it in themselves, because I had teachers who saw greatness in me, and that has made all the difference in my life. Thank you.